My husband, Camille, told me bluntly, I got my girlfriend pregnant. We need to break up. I was shocked and felt all my feelings for him disappear. This happened 6 months ago. When I asked if I knew the woman, he replied, yeah, it's Kyra. Remember her from Alice's wedding. Alice's wedding was over a year ago, which means he's been cheating for more than a year. Alice was a friend from college, and Kyra was a junior 2 years behind me. Kyra and I were even in the same tennis group, so I remembered her well. She was known as Little Devil behind her back because of her bold personality. My husband just laughed, acting like nothing was wrong. I couldn't believe it. My name is Viola, and I'm 30. I met Camille in the college tennis club. Even though he's 5 years older than me, he was always hanging out at the club, joking around and getting along with everyone. Back then, it seemed kind, especially to the younger students. But after we started dating, I found out he only acted that way with the girls. He cheated on me often, but I still loved him and married him right after graduation. Once I started working, though, I saw his true self. He would show off to the younger students at the club, but only because his own co-workers ignored him. He was so bad at his job that he never got any important tasks and had plenty of free time. He's still not getting any raises or promotions. He can do his job well, and he doesn't help around the house either. I tried to get him to change, but he refused. I didn't divorce him earlier because it felt like too much trouble. Plus his parents were kind people. Now he tells me we should split up quickly because of the baby. He said I could keep the apartment and that he'd leave. His attitude made me furious. How could he be so careless about our relationship? Lately, I've been thinking about having a child, especially now that I'm almost 40. I'm successful at work, earning more than him, and my job has great maternity benefits, but it hurt that we couldn't have kids, and now my husband had a baby on the way with someone else. There was no love left for him, and I wanted to end things for good. What made me angriest was that he showed no guilt, only talking about what he wanted with no apology at all. It was clear to me that this long, unpleasant relationship had to end. I decided to hire a lawyer, ask for compensation, and divide our property fairly. I also planned to ask Kyra for something, too. When I mentioned this, my husband complained, I don't have that kind of money, and Kyra's pregnant. I don't want to stress her out. Then why don't you take on the debt and pay for it yourself? I replied, it's your affair that caused this mess. Take responsibility. When I glared at him, he finally gave in. Fine, I guess I have no choice. Maybe my dad will help with the debt. With that, I moved forward with the divorce and hired a lawyer. My in-laws called me many times, pleading with me not to go through with it. My father-in-law even cried, saying, if you leave him, he's done for. And my mother-in-law begged, please reconsider. Viola, I love you like my own daughter, but I couldn't turn back now. I told them everything about his constant cheating and how lazy he was at home. They finally understood and apologized, hanging their heads in shame. They even paid the compensation in full on his behalf, since he had no savings, making him promise never to rely on them again. I couldn't understand how my irresponsible ex came from such caring, responsible parents. After that, I moved back to my parents' house. The divorce process, which I thought would be a huge hassle, was over before I knew it. I settled into my new life, and 6 months went by. I was busy with work on weekdays and kept up with house chores on weekends, so I didn't think about my ex-husband much. Then, I got a call from my best friend, Alice. She was furious. Viola, did you know your ex-husband Camille and Kyra are living in the fancy new high-rise and bragging about it to everyone? Kyra even invited me to a baby shower where the gifts have to be over $100 and guests have to pay a $100 participation fee. It's crazy, she shouted. I didn't know Kyra had given birth, and I couldn't understand why she'd contact Alice. Knowing Alice is my best friend, both Camille and Kyra knew that Alice would tell me everything. When I shared this with Alice hesitantly, her anger flared up even more. She did it on purpose, that horrible woman actually said. I'm so happy now, thanks to Viola breaking up with Camille. Can you believe she'd tell me that? Alice fumed. She's the worst, and I want to put her in her place. The little devil from our college days has finally turned into a full-blown demon. Ah, I said. In college, Kyra had always been trouble, going after men who were already in happy relationships. Even when couples fought because of her, she'd keep a calm face and say things like, if a couple breaks up just because another girl is interested, it wasn't true love anyway, what's the big deal? She'd say it with a sweet, smug smile, stretching her arms like she didn't have a care in the world. I always pitied her, thinking she'd never truly loved anyone. But I knew better than to get involved with her and kept my distance. I decided I didn't care about Kyra anymore, but there was something else I couldn't ignore. Alice, there's only one newly built high-rise apartment building nearby. Right, did you hear when they moved in? I asked. Alice replied quickly. Apparently, it was very recent. They were bragging about how they got in just in time because someone who bought the apartment had to move for work and listed it without ever moving in. I see, that makes sense, I said. My moving day is this Sunday, and the baby shower party is on Saturday, so we'll only have to avoid each other for one day. There are plenty of elevators, and we might even be using different entrances. You're right, Alice agreed. You haven't run into them so far, so it should be fine. We both laughed, thinking everything would go smoothly. But then, an unexpected situation came up. On Saturday, I unexpectedly ran into my ex-husband and Kyra in the first-floor elevator hall. They were stepping out of the elevator, just as I was waiting to get in. Our eyes met, and there was no escaping this awkward encounter. Hey, Viola, what are you doing here? My ex-husband was the first to ask, surprised. Then Kyra chimed in, her voice bright but her eyes sharp. Viola, did you come to celebrate with us? You wanted to see our adorable baby, didn't you? She continued, her tone getting more condescending. Are you here to see our fancy high-rise apartment and our little prince? The way she referred to their baby as prince was irritating. No, I was just waiting for the elevator, I replied, trying to keep a polite tone. Camille might be my ex, but now he was just a stranger, and I didn't want a scene. Oh, sure, she smirked. You're probably just jealous that we're living in a luxury high-rise with our precious prince. You still love him, don't you? Just admit you wanted to see him again. Viola, no matter how much you love Camille, I'm his wife now, Kyra said with mock sweetness, and you're not welcome in our lives. Seeing how absurd they both were, I felt embarrassed that I had wasted my 20s on Camille. I wished I had ended things with him sooner, instead of listening to this nonsense now. But my words seemed to get under Camille's skin. What's with you? Take a hint from Kyra. She just had a baby, but still makes an effort to look good for me. And you, in those cheap clothes, with no makeup? Not embarrassed at all. I was just going to the grocery store, I replied. I was wearing a simple, clean white t-shirt and jeans. That's exactly the problem. This is why I got tired of you, he muttered, waving me off as if I were a stray cat. Just go home. We don't have anything to do with each other anymore. No, this actually is my home, I said, annoyed. That's why I was waiting for the elevator. They stared at me, dumbfounded. Seriously, you're joking, right? Camille asked, looking completely thrown. No joke, I clarified. I've been living here with my parents for 6 months. My father was approached by real estate agents when talk of selling his land here came up. They pitched the convenience of high-rise living, especially as he's getting older, over maintaining a single-family home. Though we didn't own all the land where the high-rise now stands, we did own my part, and the sale gave us enough to move into one of the higher floors at much lower cost than market value. What? You were landowners with that much money? Camille's eyes went wide. If I'd known, I never would have broken up with you. Give back the compensation money. You didn't need a property settlement after all. Those are two separate matters, I said firmly. The compensation was for your affair, and the property settlement was for dividing assets between us as a married couple. I glanced at Kyra, who was silently mumbling to herself, her shock evident. Finally, Kyra glared and spat. But, Viola, you don't have a baby or a loving husband. Do you? I haven't lost yet. Kyra, I was never competing with you, I replied, calmly. In fact, I'm actually grateful to you. Because of you, I was able to break up with Camille. I then added, oh, and we're moving out tomorrow, so I doubt we'll see each other again. What? Why? You just moved into a high-rise, they both exclaimed. I shrugged. It's really just a difference in values. High-rise living isn't a good fit for us. My mom and I prefer to hang laundry outside in natural sunlight and fresh air. But with no balconies and only some windows that open, we couldn't do that here. Plus, the intense sunlight made it unbearably hot even with air conditioning, and every little earthquake shook the building. Apparently it's designed to sway to prevent collapse, but the higher floors shake more, which was terrifying. The daily elevator ride was also a pain. It got crowded during morning rush hour, stopping on nearly every floor. Even though the building was close to the station, the inconveniences of high-rise living wore us down. So, we decided to go back to a house with a garden, where we'd feel more comfortable. Fortunately, our apartment sold quickly, and almost for the same price we bought it at. As I explained, my ex-husband and Kyra smirked. Oh, so we'll never see each other again. Guess a high-rise isn't meant for common folks like you, it's more for elite families like ours. I didn't get how he reached that conclusion, but something became clear. What I had grown to dislike in him was this attitude that pretending to be someone important without making any real effort or having the ability to back it up. You're stuck in your ways and unwilling to improve. I got completely fed up with you, I said, but it's alright now. You're unchangeable. Goodbye. I returned his own words back to him as I stepped into the elevator. Right before the doors closed, I couldn't resist adding, by the way, are you sure the baby is actually yours? His face looked confused. What do you mean? He asked. I simply replied, exactly what I said. Right, Kyra, you know what I mean. The doors shut, and I didn't get to see their reaction. The truth was, when we had trouble having a child, I went through tests, and it turned out there was no problem on my end. I'd started to wonder if the issue was with him, but he refused to get tested, so I left him with that little bombshell. Later, a friend told me about Kyra's baby shower. Despite all her boasting about their high-rise, it turned out they were actually living on the third floor, not very high at all. They even charged friends to attend the party, yet served only cheap snacks. When a guest quietly complained, Kyra blew up, saying, "You should be grateful for the chance to see my baby and pay for it." Things got tense, and despite my ex trying to calm her down, the whole event ended in a huge fight between them. I heard that their life in the high-rise wasn't so glamorous after all. They were struggling financially and tried to scam their friends to make some money. Eventually, friends learned the truth and left, furious. Meanwhile, I happily moved to a single-family home with a garden, where I now live peacefully with my family. Recently, I adopted an adorable kitten. It turns out that the high-rise they moved into has serious construction flaws and has been all over the news. Now, they're stuck. They can't sell even if they wanted to. Looking back, I feel incredibly lucky. My ties with my ex are completely severed, and I'm enjoying peaceful days and a relaxing afternoon. As I fold the freshly dried laundry, my kitten sometimes curls up on the clothes and falls asleep. Watching that sweet face, I think, today was another good day.